because I don't know if IQs have dropped over the years, but there used to be people who understood play design, Raider fans who got different offenses, who understood the difference between, say, a channel route and an out pattern. I can go on and on and on. Now it's like you have this ESPN generation that has been the victim of this driven down, smashed down IQ crap that says blame whoever happens to be under center, as opposed to who designed the play and then coach the person under center. Okay? And that's what we've got going on here. Remember in preseason, I said Aidan O'Connell wasn't ready because obviously he didn't study the offense. Well, look, what was put out there wasn't much anyway, but it was quite clear that when he went out there, he was confused. So now you mean to tell me you want to bring him in to an offense that clearly has timing issues because it's not properly drawn up so that when the quarterback drops back and gets to where he's supposed to be, the receivers, stop running their patterns and make their cuts, right? That's called good design. That's called time design. That's not there. So you mean to tell me you expect Aidan to fix it? Did you make sure that Aidan studied to begin with? All right. Because Geno studied. Geno studied. The problem wasn't Geno Smith. The problem is the fact that this offense doesn't get the best out of the player because it isn't designed correctly. The trouble is a lot of you out there don't think in terms of science or physics. You think in terms of ESPN. All right? You need to get that crap out of your brain. You guys need to act like television doesn't exist. There is the computer, and you can study and come up with plays and formations and everything else. You really need to do that because what's going on right now is that we have a league that doesn't have, or I should say, let me rephrase that. We're in a league where there is a boring sameness in offense. I don't know if you've noticed that or not, but I said this at the last NFL owners meeting I attended a year ago here in Atlanta in Buckhead. I said there were 47 basic plays that every single team ran, everyone, and to the point where there's literally no surprise. And then you get on television and these folks are calling out coverages and everything else like you're combining them at Sears, as opposed to the differences that you would get if offenses were truly not alike, where you had one offense that, okay, you can have 7 men at the line of scrimmage, right? But it doesn't say in the rule book that those 7 men or women have to be all together like they are. You can break them up. Look at the A11 and how the offenses are broken up then. Look at the swinging gate formations, all right? We have a number of examples of truly exotic formations that fans deserve to see in the modern NFL, if only for the sake of variety and unpredictability. But instead, we get this boring sameness. We have this constant cross-pollination of talent because of free agency and the trade system. And we have, because of that, this simplification of offense to deal with the fact that the college educated student is not instructed how to think in detail, how to absorb detailed information and process it. That is a giant problem today. And so because of that, in college, you get people who've never had to call out, let's see, split left, Z half motion, 42 sweep, 42 sweep, okay? Basically, I just called out a sweep 42, four back two hole, a sweep to the left. And with the flanker coming in, it's called half motion toward the tight end before the snap. All right, that's what I called out. All right, that's what I called out. And so you don't you don't see in college a lot of offenses that are governed around what we call Paul Brown principles of calling plays, where you literally call out what in some cases the line is supposed to do, and then the backs. 42 is like the four back to the two hole, right? And then you're calling out formation red right. Red is the color of the formation where the fullback in a split formation, fullback over here, halfback over here. The fullback is on the right side, just 4 yards behind the right offensive tackle, and the tight end is on that side, right? So then if I'm calling for half motion, that means the flanker is over on the right because the tight end's on the right. It comes in motion, right? I've said all that. Now, you know what they do? They hold up pictures, colors, maybe a banana, if you're talking about a banana, all right? It's ridiculous. They don't ask you to think about numbers, and then all of a sudden, those players that are asked to think about numbers and names, excuse me, asked not to think about numbers and names, but think about pictures in the college, come to the NFL and they have to observe this verbiage and figure it out. A lot of these folks don't even take languages, all right? And that's what we're dealing with here, and it's not good. And it's this dumbing down of society that causes a handful of us to be ready for the next phase that's governed by artificial intelligence. And that's a bad thing. We have to get people to think, say, what does it have to do with the Raiders and everything? Everything. And that's why I'm talking to you all this way. The best way for you, I'm saying this to you, the best way for you to understand what's going on is to start drawing your own plays. I don't mean for Madden either. I mean drawing your own plays for these simulators and having whiteboard talks and talks online, drawing plays with the actual expectation the play will be used in a football game at some level, high school, college, pro. Because then you have to deal with whether or not your play can actually work and if somebody else can actually, execute it, right? And someone will actually understand what you're trying to achieve. I'm not talking about designing a play for Madden, like my friend Mike Wilson was saying, okay? No, at the Raiders. No, I'm talking about the serious task of drawing up instructions for football players to do a thing. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. And what I'm saying to you is that Chip Kelly's instructions suck. I'm saying to you that his play design's awful. I'm saying to you that his plays are drawn up for kids in college. And you don't have to explain much to them either. They're not thinking much at all right? That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, do not have a good offensive coordinator at all. And you can't just sit back and say, oh, yeah, we know that. What do you do when you know that and someone's not performing? You replace them. Chip Kelly needs to be replaced. Put Greg Olson in there. He's been offensive coordinator. They got him as quarterback coach. Give me a break. Or maybe reverse the roles. Demote Chip to quarterback coach, and then let Greg Olson be the offensive coordinator and fix this stuff. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous what we got going on here. And again, Raider Nation has to be smarter about how it looks at football, especially on offense. It is an affront to the great Raider fans of the past, like Raider Moore and others, who really absorbed what the Raiders are doing. They understood the Raider way of offense. They understood the 11 angry men on defense. It was more about scheme as much as it was about players. It's always been players, of course, don't get me wrong. But it was also about scheme, okay? Now, you guys, you act like scheme doesn't matter. It's always just the quarterback. And again, it's an ESPN thinking you've got in your head, and it's contaminated your brain, and it's severely reduced your IQ, all right? It really has. You have to understand, have the tools to understand what you're watching. That's really important. It really is. Chip Kelly has this idea where, okay, if I have my linebacker here, then I want you to look over there, right? And what he's asking you to do in total takes more time. And so that's so by its nature, the quarterback is always a step behind. You understand? Now, that's not uniformly true for every play, but it's true for a lot of them. Chip Kelly needs a system of Oregon plays. You know, you throw very short, you're designing almost a kind of elongated, you're designing an elongated sweep rather than having the person, when you're throwing to this play area behind the line of scrimmage and having them run the rest of the way. The Raiders need more plays like that, and they need to stop running plays where you're asking a receiver to run into where a clump of other receivers that are supposed to your blockers are, rather than putting that person truly out in space by themselves. There's nobody around them. They can pick up a bunch of yards and possibly score a touchdown. The Raiders scheme that's being ran right now is not the scheme to win games. It's not going to win the Raiders any games. That's just a fact. Nothing's going to change that. It's not going to win them any games. Changing quarterbacks is not going to win them any games. But changing offensive coordinators and fixing these technical issues will. And that's what the Raiders need. So please think about this, Raider Nation. That's all I'm asking you to do. Open your mind, turn off the TV, get yourself a white sheet of paper and a pen. I don't care if it's drawing on the back of an envelope or something. Whatever you do, draw the plays. Understand what's going on. That's important. Because I'm telling you, we're not getting the best out of this situation. Chip Kelly is not a good offensive coordinator. I used to think he was. But that was when people started talking about him. You start looking at what he's doing, and it's not what I expected to see. It's simple, and there's not much of it. And when defenders figure it out, hey, you can call it a day, sit back, relax, kick it with a glass of their favorite beverage, and watch the defenders crush our offense. Bad stuff. Subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube and bookmark NFL News by Zenny62.com and ZennyReport.com to be continued. Oh, and Zenny62blog.com. See ya.